And I would say first time observe, clock it, second time you're onto it. Second time as a leader, because the second time that's the beginning of a pattern, if not a pattern already. So real quick, this is almost rude, but I'm going to do this because I think it makes a whole lot of sense and people get a lot of value out of it. So if this is my team, this is how I orient new people into my team. I say, g'day, they're having a coffee on the first day. I think it's really cool that we set some expectations around how things roll around here. I would say, here's the thing about working in my team. You and I, we do the same thing. We collectively work towards our team goal, our branch goal, our group goal, our division goal, our organisational goal, whatever it is. And this is the four walls of my team, my branch, my whatever. The only difference between you and I is that I'm the leader. So I have actually signed up to agree to take on different responsibilities on top of the shared responsibility. We all have our different way of getting there, right? Most people go, yeah. So within the four walls of our team, this is how I want people to rock and roll. You know, you do you. If you're your purple squiggles, then that's fantastic. If you're red, straight, you know, lines, you do you. Everybody in this team, in our team, is to bring to their full potential, bring out their full potential to the full of their abilities. I will do whatever I can to help. And by the way, I'll be inside with you in here doing my thing, you know, and I'm more like, you know, a hot mess. So that's all beautiful. That's how we all work together. But the difference between your role and my role is that I also do this. I also do this because I said I would, and I accept the responsibility and the title and all those sorts of things. And that's marching the perimeter. So whilst everybody's in here playing along nicely, that's great. But if, for example, we have someone who does that every now and then or that. So out here is a breach. So I'm patrolling, you know, whatever the word may be, observing, caring for, watching, always got my radar up. And I noticed this thing. And if I was having this conversation with you, I would say exactly as I did. What would an example of that be? You gave me tardiness. I go, exactly, because we all agree we'll be here by a certain time. And when that happens, it's my job to show up and go, oh, what happened there? Not you are bad or whatever. And people, when you have this type of conversation with them, they 100% get it. They understand that that's what a leader's role is to show up right next to the problem, because the problems you permit, you promote. Now, if I don't stand where that is, then all of a sudden you're going to have, you know, old mate over here doing the same thing. And all of a sudden it just gets too much. There's chaos. Everybody's doing whatever, and you don't feel that you can lead this team. So we have to, that's a short answer. This, you know, these things are all examples of expectations or standards. So this might be how we speak to each other. This might be the quality of the information we put into the database. This might be how we present, you know, how we dress at work. You're getting the examples, but I would have that conversation, use that box, and just say that would be a breach. Now, if you heard that conversation and I was just having it with you and I said to you, does that feel fair and reasonable that when something like that happens, that I show up to understand? What would you say to me if I was your leader?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
In which case, you've got permission. Permission is always important. And then two, you then have to bloody do it. It's not like, I'm busy with this thing and I can't, or it's not really that late, or whatever other language that might come up in our mind to allow us to avoid an uncomfortable situation. We then have to, as leaders, stand where the problem is, because not only will that person see that we noticed, we now show up, and then other people see that we do something about this stuff, because everybody's always watching. Aren't you always watching what's happening? You clock what happens with other people, what people get away with, what they don't get away with. Well, the same thing is happening to you and your leadership brand. And I think that's a really important conversation to have.
Yeah, and I love the way, Nick, you're relating that back to brand and values, because that is such an important thing. It's about, how do you want to be known as a leader? Do you want to be known as somebody, as a leader who just lets people get away with shit? It's you're fair sometimes and not fair other times, or, you know, you've got your favourites, or you're too weak. I'll use that term. That's a pretty blunt, not courageous enough to have a conversation. And I was thinking, as you were going through that, Nick, I wonder who finds it easier to deal with a big breach versus a small breach.
Yes.
If someone's 5 minutes late, you know, if someone's 5 minutes late, 20 minutes late every day, we start overlooking it for, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 times because it's only tiny, and then suddenly it becomes big and it's much more challenging to manage. So those little breaches, whilst they might seem insignificant, can over time be significant. And as you say, Nick, people are always watching. So if you're getting away with lots of little things, then maybe I can too.